Good evening. John Boydrus. I'm on 49th Street, Burien. I'm speaking on the annexation issue. There's just a couple of points I wanted to make. One is that, from what I've seen, we don't have a good idea of what the costs involved in the annexation are. We also don't have a good idea where the funding for the annexation is coming from. I haven't seen a business plan submitted by the city staff. It seems to me it's the council's responsibility to know where the money's coming from, to pay for it, and what it's going to cost. The second thing I wanted to speak about is if we go forward with the vote for annexation, regardless, it seems to me that everyone would be in best interest of everyone to have the highest voter participation as possible. Holding the election in midsummer guarantees a low voter turnout. Holding in November guarantees a much higher voter participation for most democracy, and clearly seems, especially since we're having a presidential election in November, that it would be in the best interest of democracy and Burien residents and the residents of White Center to be given the opportunity to vote, rather than holding in midsummer where a lot of people are out of town. And the whole democracy doesn't work well when there's not a lot of voter participation. So those are my 2 points. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up we have Nona Diamond, followed by Elizabeth Gordon, followed by Charlie Rangel.
My name is Nona Damon. I'm a senior citizen on a limited income. For that reason, I do not agree to buy things I cannot afford to pay for. Burien cannot afford to pay or support White Center area-wide in the long term. All reports say this area will cost more to support than it will to take in revenues. Burien should not be looking to annex this area. King County has been able to provide very few figures on what it will cost to run this area. From the figures it has provided, Burien does not seem to be in the ballpark on some estimates. A number of city council members openly stated they would not put annexation on the ballot unless there were sales tax credits to support it. The sales tax credits do not exist at this time. They should not be put on the ballot, and the Burien Council needs to stand by what it said it will or will not do. A lot of information missing and disagreement on the issues of annexation area-wide. However, all reports agree that this area will cost more than it brings in. The long-term Burien does not have the money to support area-wide, provide quality of services to the residents of the area. Burien should not be considering annexation of the area. It will not be able to adequately support. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Elizabeth Gordon. And can I just remind everyone, please state your name and address for the record.
My name's Elizabeth Gordon, and I live at 8601 24th Avenue Southwest in Seattle, and right by Westwood Village. However, my husband and I own a restaurant, Uncle Mike's Superlicious Barbecue, which is at 9640 16th Avenue Southwest in White Center. And I'm speaking in favor of Resolution 330 and to have the vote on annexation sooner rather than later, although I'm not sure what the data is on people turning out for a vote in August rather than November. I was thinking more people might turn out in August and not be distracted by the presidential election, but I'm sure the data, when the timing would be good, University of Washington would have something like that. But I know for myself and the other business owners on 16th in the business district there, we would prefer a vote sooner rather than later. Our barbecue restaurant is getting customers from all over King County and including Tacoma. People come from Issaquah and Redmond as we grow and get better known. Full Tilt ice cream shop, they now have 4 outlets, I believe, and they're planning on expanding in the White Center area. Justin Klein asked me to speak for him as well. He and his wife live in the recently annexed area of Burien, and their businesses are in White Center and in the Ballard area of Seattle and Columbia City. And his view on it is that he feels safer, and his business in White Center is doing better than the ones in Seattle. But that's another example where there's a business that is thriving, that brings in people from outside of the district into the White Center area, and we would prefer the Resolution Center. There's a number of businesses that are growing now, and we would very much appreciate and like the benefits that municipal government would give to a business district as far as bringing us together and being able to coordinate things that make it easier and better to do business that are not necessarily coordinated with King County now, such as law enforcement and traffic, transportation issues, signage, that kind of thing. So for all those reasons, oh, and the last one I will just point out is access. All the business owners there very, very much appreciate how accessible Burien officials and leaders and the Newark council members are, as opposed to trying to figure out what is going on in Seattle and with the politicians and business leaders there. So we would like you all to vote in favor of Resolution 330. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Charlie Rangel, followed by Roger DeLore, followed by Michael Fulton.
Good evening, Council. My name is Charlie Rangel. I live at 15226 9th Avenue Southwest. It's about, 4 blocks away from here. I came today just to give you a little bit of insight about where I'm coming from with what topic, because I work for the Municipal Research Center, which I'm pretty sure every one of you should be familiar with. For about 3 years, doing a lot of research and giving information and advice to city council members, city attorneys, city planners. The reason I'm coming up today is some of the information that I've been hearing, as I mentioned last time I was here a month ago, is the discussion about the sales tax credit and how that works out in a computation dependent upon the state law. Historically, the city of Burien has got a very good idea of what they should expect, not this $5 million. It was reported by Ralph Nichols on November 21st last year that the city manager said we received $584,000 for the first Highline annexation. So if we add a second Highline annexation, the amount's going to be just about the same, not double, just about the same, because it's based upon the total sales tax of the area. So if you've got $584,000 before, please do not think for a second that you will get $5 million per year to help out in this process. My only hope is there it's considered and weighed properly in this decision of whether or not to go forward, and whether or not you really have the money with which to do what we hope to do. So that's all my input I have for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we have Roger DeLore.
My name is Roger DeLorme. I live at 13254 2nd Avenue Southwest. My concern is with the animals. Animal control for Area Y. At present, King County takes care of animal control, which is better than Burien's animal control. If Area Y is annexed, how is Burien going to provide the same kind of service? Where is the money coming from? Where are the comprehensive plans for business for Area X and Y? They are to be in place before annexation. It seems that by hook or crook, Area Y is going to be annexed.
Next up, we have Michael Fullerton, followed by Justine Edgar, followed by Joey Martinez.
First, I'd like to thank my God for letting me live through his blessing, grace, and spirit. I can't help it because I'm disabled. I can't help it because I was in a coma for 4 months. I can't help it because it took me 2 years to learn how to walk and talk again. Also, let the record reflect. I seen the last meeting I spoke, y'all called me Fowler. My name is not Fowler. My name is Fuller, F-U-L-L-E-R. I'm disturbed in my spirit about Bruce Harrell when we had this meeting at Southeast Seattle Senior Citizen Building, and John Diaz was there. I disturbed in my spirit that he treats black poor indifferently. And I would say that Martin Luther King would turn over in his grave if he see how his name is being slandered. He did in fact speak about us as blacks being treated indifferently. And this is the most extraordinary abuse that has ever occurred in United States history with this slavery, putting another form of slavery, which by Mongoloids, which violates the 13th Amendment and also Emancipation Proclamation of 1863, where me and Margaret Lloyd Richards, who are jurists, and myself, we are denied to be in a public entity without being maliciously harassed. That's an RCW 98.36080. And we don't have no one to report it to. So this is another form of slavery. Also, it violates me and Margaret Lloyd Richards' First Amendment rights, due process, equal protection of our 14th Amendment rights, procedure due process, and substantive due process. Because we don't have the right to voice our opinion. Now we have at the time of war, let me put that in there, at the time of war, now they have the Mongoloids with green card before us as a people. That violates Article 3, Section 3, treason to the Constitution. Now, like she said, we haven't got our reparation, but yet and still we're spending trillions of dollars on the job training with folk from other countries don't know nothing about Washington State. So I can't help, like I said, I appreciate coming here because we can express our feelings to the elected officials that said we the people, and that we as a people have the right to address the elected officials that said we the people when it's a conflict. And when it's a conflict with state constitution and statutes, state must yield the federal constitution and statutes under the United States versus First Bank, September 27, 1983, and Bivens versus 6 unknown age in 1971.
Mr. Fuller, can I ask you to wrap up? If 3 minutes are up.
Okay, I'm totally disturbed in my spirit with Christine over in the grave, or the governor of Washington, where I had just left Senator Maria Cantwell's office reporting her violations of her oath of admission, oath of allegiance, oath of affirmative clause, and oath of office. And that Patty Maria Cantwell, Jim McDermott, Norm Dix, Adam Smith, J. Indy, Dave Riker, Rick Lawson must hold her accountable for violating Title IX of the Federal Funding Act of 2000. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Chastine Edgar.
My name is Chastine Edgar. I live at 1811 Southwest 152nd Street. I'm asking for 5 minutes. I'm here speaking on behalf of the members of the Annexation Evaluation Committee. This group is a group of citizens from both the North Highline area, Area Y, as well as Burien. To the Burien City Councils, as members of this group, we've submitted signatures in excess of 2,000 citizens requesting that the annexation of the North Highline area not proceed on. We received those from Kathy Parker, and they were entered into record, and certainly was over a month ago now. Attached are 10 reasons of why we believe that the council should vote to oppose putting the annexation of Area Y on the ballot. This city council sat here a few months ago and said that they would not approve putting this on the ballot unless they were sure they had the sales tax credits and they were committed. Those have not come through. You do not have the money to support this area. That's number one. Number two, according to the Burien Comprehensive Plan, and it is on page 2-39 if you'd like to look it up, you are not to proceed on with these annexations unless you have a business plan. You proceeded on with the annexation of Area X, which violated your business plan, and now you're going on to put Area Y on with no business plan. Additionally, you still don't have a business plan for the city, as you said you were going to gather together and create in 2012, and I believe Mr. Block has asked for that more than once. Number three, the city promised that there would be an agreement. They stood at the boundary review board and promised there would be an agreement between the fire districts before this was put on the ballot. There is no agreement. In addition to that, Fire District 2 has made it clear that they oppose this because they will be millions short. There is still no agreement. There has been, in the history of these, never, ever, that these have been put on the ballot without an agreement being finalized between these interlocal agreements. You don't have that between the fire districts. Number four, there's not enough money currently in the plan even to support police in Burien. That's why we will be running a kids and cops levy, and the first 2 years will go to cops because you don't have enough money for cops right now. The amount of dollars that are projected for Area Y are inadequate. In the Burke draft report, and that's just what it was, the draft report, and it is an inadequate report which both Mr. Martin and the representative, not Martin Shook, because he didn't show up to the boundary review board, said was a guess. It was just a guess, and many of the numbers are greatly off. Number five, at the end of 10 years, the Burke report draft says there won't be enough money to support Area Y. So you know that at the end of 10 years, you don't have enough money to support this area. Okay, you will be running short of monies that are not available there. And then in addition to that, that brings forth the next thing, that in fact there is in excess of $77 million of infrastructure. And that's not a guess any longer. Initially, King County said they didn't have any facts on that, but more recently they have produced for me and for our group a report on the road conditions up there in the stormwater, and it is that amount of infrastructure deficit. Burien will inherit that debt and does not have the money to repair those areas. Even more importantly, if you watch the rains that just happened last week when 152nd and Ambon were flooding, that there are stormwater problems. Those will have to be delayed for the core of this city. And the reason they'll have to be delayed is that if you annex Area Y, immediately an infusion of $5 million must go up there and take priority over any needs in the city of Burien. So those infrastructure are truly there, and there is a record with King County. They're just not pretend. Number seven, Burien doesn't have enough money to fund human services up in Area Y, doesn't even have enough money to fund human services down here. In addition to that, there are inadequate amounts of money for Area Y for legal services. They are way off the mark from King County, and they will be greatly reduced up to that area. That area has individuals that need those legal services, and that number will far exceed what Burke put in its draft report. And in addition to that, one of the other things that came out is senior citizen services, as they're funded in Area Y, will have no monies, and we're not even included in the Burke report, as well as the homeless. The number of people who are homeless, which I believe the number is 44 living on the street up in that area, were not considered about how they were going to be served up in that area. Number 8, Lloyd Hare appeared last week right here in this room and went on to go on how property values has significantly dropped. The two areas that have been most impacted are Area Y and Burien. And we have lost revenues that were originally anticipated in the Burke report. A significant amount, as Lloyd Hare made the point of. In addition to losing those, we have increased our property taxes. I believe Lloyd Hare said they went from at a rate of 12.94, and they will go to something like 13.76 next year. Even though we've lost value, we will be paying more in tax. So those intensive. Okay. The last thing that I'd like to say is the North Highline Council, which comes and says it represents the majority of the people up there, in fact does not. When we call for the voting record on it, most of those individuals are elected to their positions by only 2 to 20 individuals who vote for them. When we bring you a petition from 2,000 people and you ignore that, that seems to be rude and egregious as compared to constantly pandering to a voice of just a couple of people out of the North Highland area. We ask that you not put this on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Joey Martinez, followed by Rachel Levine, followed by Debbie White.
Joey Martinez, 429 South 189th, Burien 98148. I'm here to speak in favor of this council adopting when it comes, and hopefully you speed it along for resolution number 330. Partially the reason is because annexation is very important to me. And I've been looking at this for months now. Spent considerable time researching, just trying to figure out what would be the right decision. Initially, I came out against it, dug into it, and it's really the right decision for the area. We've got sewer, we've got all the special districts, they're pretty much one. Things that have not been taken care of, excuse me, things that have not been looked at are what happens if Seattle annexes that area. Prices for water are going to go up, things like that. I mean, all this stuff we know about, it's been spoken about, and I just hope you look at it and take it seriously, get it done, make it right. It's the right thing to do. It's the best thing to do for Burien, short term, long term, medium term. The only other thing I have to say is we promised the library we would get back to them shortly. The sooner we have the vote, the sooner we can say, yes, we are serious, yes, this is happening. Yes, do not shut down those libraries up there. I could speak for many more minutes, but I think everything's been said. Thank you.
Rachel Levine.
My name is Rachel Levine. I live at 430 South 124th Street, Burien. I just want to, first of all, thank the members of the council, the council staff, Mike Martin, and the members of the community who came together to make it possible for the question of Resolution 330 to move forward with their presentations to the King County Boundary Review Board. It was an impressive kind of community coming together. There were certainly not everybody was in favor of it, but we had a number of people speaking from their own experience. I voted in August of 2009 to become part of Burien. We live in area X, I guess. And I just thought that this little bit in Burien City News in September of 2009 expresses why people want to be part of Greater Burien. You can apply for a position on an advisory board, attend a council meeting, or simply view a council meeting on the city website. Come and participate in city presented activities, and then they list them. The same thing could be said for the people that are coming from the rest of North Highline. The rest of North Highline isn't just Area Y. These are people who live there, have businesses there. Their children attend the same schools as the rest of the people who live in the North Highline and Burien area. We are one community, And by having access for everyone to a municipality that will look after the things that we need in our own backyards will make a life much better for all of us. Boundaries do not keep out the environment. Boundaries do not keep out people. What we need to make is an area where people can come together and build a community. There's a great deal of energy and interest from people who live in area, so-called Area X, and certainly it has been reflected over the years in the work of the North Highline Unincorporated Area Council. These are people who have given much time and effort to making sure that the people who were not represented got some representation. Thank you very much for your work, and I'm hoping that you will go ahead with offering the rest of the people of North Highline the opportunity to come into the city of Burien. Thank you.
Next up, we have Debbie Wagner, followed by Robert Powell, followed by Ron Powell.
Hi, I'm Debbie Wagner, and I live at 1520 Southwest 158th Street in Burien. I kind of am seeing something similar as to what happened at the boundary review hearings. We had very articulate citizens from the area come and give detailed analysis of financial considerations that we thought the Boundary Review Board should consider. And then we heard impassioned pleas. The Boundary Review Board wasn't really bound to listen to impassioned pleas, and they made it clear to us before we even made our presentation that people saying, we just think it'll be a much brighter, better, more beautiful world if we're all under one Burien umbrella, are not really what that was about. And I don't understand why the council chooses to move forward on this when this is the same thing that's happening again. You have citizens saying there are huge financial problems and burdens that will have to be carried by the city of Burien, by the taxpayers of Burien, should there be these revenue shortfalls that have been predicted. One of those examples is the sales tax credit. If it's eliminated or reduced, in the first year of analysis in the Burke report of 2013, there'll be $14 million short. The reason for that is because the $5 million immediate need of surface water management and the $5 million immediate need of capital improvements has not been budgeted in the Burke analysis. So that's $10 million, and then the $4.2 million they expect to collect from the sales tax credit will also be maybe eliminated or reduced. So you're either, for sure, 10 million short in year 2013, or as much as 14.2 million short in year 2013. Either way, you're short. So that's one real important reason, as Justine Edgar brought up, of why we need a business plan. Because, as my husband pointed out, who is an economist, you don't have any way of knowing how those figures are going to be budgeted over time, over the life of the tax credit of 10 years. You don't know how you're going to come up with that 43 million of the Burke analysis for capital improvements, or that 77 million in Seattle's analysis for capital improvements if you don't have a business plan. And those are figures that people are concerned about because those figures, the cost of those will be borne by the taxpayers of Burien if there isn't a way to budget those into the regular budget of the tax collection and the revenues that the city expects to receive. Also, the council has committed to not pursuing the annexation if the sales tax credit is eliminated. The sales tax credit is still up for consideration by the legislature. So I don't understand why Burien would be moving forward on setting a date at this time for a vote, which is an expensive process that will cost the city monies that may be for nothing if the legislature chooses to eliminate or reduce the sales tax credit. And my last comment is whether or not Jerry Robeson needs to recuse himself from the process of annexation because he's representing the North Highline Unincorporated Area Council as their council. As the minutes that were provided to me from King County indicated, he wrote the bylaws and has served as their attorney, and it doesn't indicate that he has stepped down from that position. does he have a conflict of interest in that matter? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Robert Hall.
Yes, my name is Robert Howell. I live at 15240 20th Avenue Southwest here in Burien. I have a letter here with a lot of factual data that's already been given. And it doesn't appear that factual data is very useful in this conversation. But I can see a problem in what the city is pretending to do to bring in more liabilities than they already have, with no funds to back it up. And it's reminiscent of somebody that goes out, buys a fine house, then goes and squanders their money, and then when the payment comes due, they can't pay it, and they lose their house, plus all the funds that they've accumulated. I don't want to see that happen here to the city of Burien. So please think about what you're doing when you're voting on this annexation voting situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Robbie Hall.
Good evening. My name is Robbie Howell, and I live at 15240 20th Avenue Southwest. Property values in Area Y and Burien are both rapidly decreasing, as reported by the King County Assessor's Office in September 2011 and again in March 2012. Therefore, the Burke draft report makes incorrect assumptions about the revenue flows for both of the areas should annexation be allowed. These assumptions about revenues are not based on small or insignificant degree of error. The difference for Burien is a 10% plus error, and for the Area Y White Center is a 19% error, both declining values. Clearly, with an error in anticipated revenues of this degree, should this annexation be allowed, the current citizens of Burien would be forced to have an increase in taxes and levy rates, as well as a decrease in services to provide services to Area Y, which is not a revenue sufficient area to support its own needs for services currently. I am not sure how this will make Burien a desirable location to live and buy real estate in, and it will most likely lead to further devaluation of property values in the current city of Burien. Please consider the inaccuracy of this draft report and the fact that the sales tax credits have not come through, and do not put this issue for the annexation of Area Y on the ballot for a vote. And by the way, King County Assessor Lloyd Hara has announced that our property tax rate is increasing from 12.94% to 13.74%. And when we annex, we're going to have more increases to cover the big debt that we're going to have. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to testify this evening? If so, please go ahead and assemble here and state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, I'm Barbara Dopkin. I'm the president of the North Highline Unincorporated Area Council. It's also known as NUAC. And I've served as the president of NUAC for just about a year now, and I've been on the board for approximately 2 years. This is the first time I've ever addressed this council as the president of NUAC. Prior to the annexation of Area X, King County funded a study that was conducted by Nesbitt Planning and Management. It took over 6 months and cost more than $75,000. This study looked at governance options for the future of North Highline. Given the options of Burien and Seattle, most people in North Highline preferred Burien as an annexation choice. After reviewing the information about services offered and taxes collected by Burien and Seattle, NUAC voted 10-2 to recommend Burien as the annexation choice. And NUAC still stands by that recommendation. Over the last few years, NUAC has spent little to no time actually working on any annexation issues. And I would just like to point out that NUAC is an issue-driven council. We hold monthly meetings in which we address concerns of the residents in the community by hosting various county departments in attempts to educate and resolve issues. We do not have a local government. Just in the last 2 years, NUAC has accomplished an enormous amount of good for the community. We worked hard to petition the county executive to restore our storefront deputy. We are now pleased to have Deputy B.J. Myers continuing the legacy that was started with Deputy Steve Cox. We sponsored a candidates forum for the King County Council seat as well as the 34th District Representative. This allowed residents who otherwise would not have had the opportunity to meet these candidates to be able to come to a forum in their community, hear what the candidates had to say, and get a chance to ask a lot of questions. I was told by a reporter who was at that candidates forum that that was the best forum she has ever attended. We have tirelessly been fighting to keep the White Center and the Boulevard Park libraries from closing. We do this not because of the annexation issue, but because we see this as a vital resource in our community. Although some people feel we're overserved with libraries, we do not. Because, you know, inequality matters when your local library closes and you do not have the resources to travel to other libraries or the resources to buy books. Additionally, we recently hosted a public safety forum, which was well received by the community, and we plan on hosting these meetings quarterly. We have been instrumental in getting an all-ages club in downtown White Center closed, and with the help of our King County Council representative, Joe McDermott, a moratorium was enacted to deny issuance of permits for these type of clubs in our community. We worked hard and for a long time for this. We've also been successful in having several businesses deny the renewal or issuance of their liquor licenses. So I am not sure why some people do not see the good in what we do, or the fact that this is not representing a community. Recently, we were contacted by a resident who had an issue with the King County Animal Services. There was a dangerous pit bull who came on his property and violently attacked his dog and him. He's had trouble getting King County Animal Services to respond to any of his emails and calls, and he asked if we could help him with that matter. This is what we do. We serve as a conduit, as a liaison to the county. And we're happy that Mike Martin comes to our meetings. He doesn't pander to us. We invite him. We want to know what's going on in our neighboring communities. We'd be happy to have people from Seattle come to our meetings, but they don't respond to us. And I've noticed Councilmember Edgar at some of our meetings, and it's unfortunate that he only stays a very short time, because perhaps if he stayed longer, he'd see what we actually do. I've reached out to him and let him know that we'd be happy to set aside time for him at our meetings to speak to us, to inform us of what's going on in this community. And all the community council, we're all volunteers. We all give many, many hours. We do this because we care about our community, we care about our future, we care about Burien's future, we care about our neighbors. We will always have detractors. That's just the way it is. And I find it unfortunate that people choose to malign a group of volunteers who work so hard and do nothing but good for their community. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Vera Johnson. I live at 10223 26th Avenue Southwest. I run the Village Green Perennial Nursery. It's in my house. I run a business in a residential neighborhood. I've been a member of White Center community for 9 years. As long as I've lived in this community, I have watched this community improve. I am actively involved with many of the downtown White Center businesses, and as Elizabeth stated, we all work together, and a lot of the things that I want to say have already been said. But I just want to say that I am in favor of the annexation. I've lived in Seattle and I've lived in White Center, and I can tell you that the relationships between the community members in White Center, and I shop in Burien, I eat in Burien, I participate in Burien district as well. So I'm very much in favor of the vote for the annexation. I know that in order, you know, I also worked with Steve Cox, and I've worked with BJ, and I've worked with, oh my gosh, I just forgot his name. Jeff. Oh yeah, I worked very closely with Jeff. I'm so embarrassed I forgot his name. But I just know that, you know, there are so many benefits to annexing White Center to Burien. I think that so many of the, you know, very important facts that have been stated here already tonight. I mean, we've talked about financial and we've talked about, you know, community involvement. And I just think that we would have so much to offer to Burien. And we would also, I'd like to say that I know that we would have better access to government officials and more communication with people that could actually participate in some of the resolve some of the issues in our community. So I just, thanks. This was a very last minute. I showed up, I'm speaking. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, my name's Greg Anderson, 15451 11th Avenue Southwest. A little bit different topic. I've been out of town, so I haven't had a whole lot of time or any time to go through the packet, but I did see your last meeting, and there was discussion about changes in the criminal code, traffic code, and code enforcement. In this discussion, when questions were asked for the reasons on some, not all, but some of the code changes, the answer was that it was to be so it was easier. And I don't know that it's always better to have things easier for government or code enforcement or traffic codes. Sometimes it is, but not always. One of the things that was brought up, and again, I haven't researched this, but it had to do with lenders being responsible for abandoned houses. Well, I don't know. They may be abandoned, but somebody owns them, and it's not the lender because foreclosure hasn't happened. It takes over 120 days to foreclose on a house. After it's foreclosed on, it takes another 20 days for the lender to have possession. So I don't know how a lender can go in and fix a house that's not even there. So maybe in this discussion that'll come out. I hope when you guys, those of you that vote for these modifications, I hope you understand the ratifications and the fact that the citizens of Burien are going to have to live under these rules. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further comments, we'll move on. One more? Okay.
I'll be very brief. Gil Lorraine, 10009 20th Avenue Southwest in Area Y. I want to say a couple things. One concerns the fire districts. I attend almost all the meetings of the North Highline Fire District, and there has been a resolution on everything except what's called the Delta Marine, or the sliver by the river, which has been negotiated between Seattle and Tukwila, actually. Burien doesn't even want to get into that. They've avoided that area. And the fire department's only concern is right now is our own local fire department, North Highline, is concerned that they might only have that one small area which is like 150 acres or something like that they would have to deal with. The other thing is I want to emphasize that I live in a very diverse community. A tremendous number of ethnic minorities. Caucasians may become a minority before too long. I don't care. It's an amazing community because of all the diversity, all the different languages spoken, different viewpoints, people coming from around the world and being able to speak their mind about things. You don't see a lot of them in meetings because it comes from countries which often this is not the kind of thing you do. You don't just run out to your city government and complain about things or try to get things done because that is not done in a lot of countries. But we live in a country where you can do that, And I think that annexation of our area, if it proves to be economically viable, would be a tremendous asset to the city of Burien. Thank you.